This episode is brought to you by VMGVinyl.com. Professional record cleaning, restoration, rejuvenation, and grading. Refresh your records with VMGVinyl.com.
This episode is brought to you by Groove Washer, the best record cleaners and protective sleeves for your vinyl collection. Ask for the Groove Washer from your local shop or go to GrooveWasher.com. Discount code VinylGuide10. And now, on with the show. Welcome to The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for record collectors and music nerds. Here's your host, the biggest record nerd of them all, Nate Goyer.
Well, hello, everyone. It's Nate. Please forgive the gruff voice this week. I'm fighting off a cold. I'll keep the upfronts nice and short. You guys will hopefully enjoy that. Look, this week, we're talking with Tom Flynn of Boner Records. Now, Boner Records has an amazingly strong history with underground music in California and the West Coast in general, and they're still at it some 40 years later. The label started with the band Fang, which Tom was part of, and along the way earned many, many fans, including a very young Kurt Cobain, who reportedly admired Fang and their music, especially the Landshark album, helped shape his art. Boner moved on to other bands, including Melvins, Steel Pole Bathtub, the Mr. T Experience, the Boneless Ones, and more. And right now, Boner is currently releasing a new project from Antler Family. It's a new/newish band Tom is part of. There's a limited vinyl pressing of 250 records up at antlerfamily.bandcamp.com. I put the link in this episode page. Grab one of those limited vinyl pressings if they're still available. Most of the stuff Tom makes sells out pretty quick, so get up there quick. antlerfamily.bandcamp.com. Now, today, Tom talks all about his history of the record label, the original Tapeworm single on Hermaphrodite Records, making the Landshark LP, writing the song The Money Will Roll Right In, having that song covered by Nirvana, signing Melvins, making the KISS parody albums, the story of the Melvins Lysol lawsuit, the band Duh, the hibernation of the label, and the recent awakening of Boner Records with the release of Antler Family. There's a lot of history here, people, so buckle up. I hope you enjoy the interview. So, here we go. We welcome to the Vinyl Guide podcast, Mr. Tom Flynn of Boner Records and Antler Family. Hi, Tom. How are you?
I'm okay. How's it going?
All right. Got your coffee or your tea or whatever lubricant you need?
I already took care of all that.
Okay. Cool. Look, I don't know if you know much about the show, Tom, but we do talk a bit about records. We don't go too nerdy. Hopefully we don't go too nerdy. But if there's some nerdy facts, then feel free to share. We'll dig around until we find the limit.
Right. I'll nerd out when appropriate.
Are you a bit of a record nerd, Tom?
No, I'm not at all.
Okay. Do you have a record collection? Do you play records at all?
I have some records I own. I wouldn't call it a collection, but yeah.
A smattering, just a
smattering of records that have been accumulated over time. But,
mm-hmm.
I'm not a collector. I've never really been a collector. I just have always, I like the music and I don't need to have the object as much, I guess.
Okay. All right. Do you play them that much, or are they just sitting in a box somewhere for years?
I don't play the actual. I play the most music I listen to is basically in my car or through so I listen to the digital copies, and I don't really sit around and play records, I guess, unfortunately.
Okay, life just got that way somehow.
Yeah.
So, because there's so many things that projects you've been involved in, and I'm quite fascinated by it, especially being a Melvins fan, and going back to some of the other bands that you were part of. Fang is one. I recognize you also have this new Antler Family album.
Right.
First off, does Boner Records have a website?
No. Because by the time it would have made sense, I wasn't releasing any new product, and so it just didn't. It never happened. I wish I did, because I would try to do it in some weird, funny way, but it just wouldn't make sense at this point.
All right, because it isn't too late, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But yeah, just trying to find some information, especially on things like, like the Antler family. I've had to rely on third parties, so I don't know what's real and what's not. So anyways,
I'll try not to lie too much to you. So.
No, you could lie all you want. It's fine. This is not a congressional record or anything. So, Tom, where did you start? I think you're West Coast in the U.S. Were you born in the Bay Area? Or where are you from?
No, I was born on East Coast in Connecticut near New York City, and the first real band I was in was called Tapeworm in high school, and it was kind of started almost as a joke, but sort of not. It was like we just sort of discovered punk rock, and we were kind of interested in. We liked that it would confuse all our classmates and all kinds of things. So this was we started basically just to have a band to play in our high school talent show and to like make everyone annoyed and angry at the talent show. And once that happened, we really liked the weird response we got, and so we decided to make a single, which is the Tapeworm single, which we did in high school. Which that is probably the most collectible thing I've ever done. Which we had 200 copies made, and they've sold for like $2,000 a piece by now. And so that kind of gave us the idea of, oh, this is how you actually can make a record. There's no real magic to it. You just find the plant and you give them some money and they'll make a record for you. It wasn't like some sort of weird voodoo that had to happen. So we did that. And then, so that was my first opportunity of making a record.
So let's pause on that, because that record, again, you said yourself, very collectible. You made 200. Right. It's on Hermaphrodite Records.
Yeah, well, it was the band was Tapeworm, so it was Hermaphrodite Records. It was just sort of the whole thing was just sort of made up as we went along.
You're picking all sorts of points to provoke.
Yeah, well, that was the point, I guess. Yeah. We were new to punk rock. It was in 1977 when we really started playing, and the record was made in early 78, and we were I was, I guess, 15 when we formed, and the other guys were 16 or 17. And so it was all new to us,
So you made this record, you made 200 copies. Did you guys had to pool your money together?
Actually, because the other two guys in the band wanted to spend some extra money to make 200 copies instead of 100. And I was like, no one's going to want this thing. And so I only wanted to make 100. So I actually put in less money and they put in more money and they got more records for it, so, but we should have made, more, I guess.
Well, there was a second press, because the first pressing, correct me if I'm wrong, is the small hole one. And then there's another pressing that's the same year or around that's kind of the large hole one.
No, that never happened. There might have been there was some bootleg maybe 10 or so years ago, or maybe something like that. I don't know what kind of hole that one had. And then there was an official re-release, which we didn't do, but Death Vault Records in Canada put it out. That was about 5 years ago.
Right.
But there was no second pressing we made back then, for sure.
Oh, okay. All right.
And there was no bootlegs back then because no one was interested at all until it was revived like in the late 90s. So.
I've got a plan for riches. Let's bootleg this high school punk band. Okay, so I hate to contradict you, but there are two versions from back in the day. One is a small hole, one is a large hole. I'll send you this information
I've never experienced or seen that. I don't know what that would be, but
okay. No worry. Well, maybe one is a bootleg, or maybe your bandmates made another pressing behind your back since you're so cheap.
Stop telling me. They've been raking in the money and splitting it with me.
And the first pressing, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a colored pressing. It's a bluish pressing. Is that right?
It's weird. It's black vinyl, but I don't know if it's just some cheap vinyl or what, because when you hold it up to the light, it looks kind of purplish,
Mhm.
but it's just black vinyl as far as, I mean,
That's what you
it's
guys paid for. You thought a black vinyl, and
yeah,
it
I
just had
mean,
this.
I don't, yeah, we didn't pay for any colored vinyl. I mean, it's really black, but when you, like I said, it was weird. We always noticed that when you like held it up behind, up to a light, it would seem kind of purplish.
Oh, okay.
We didn't, we thought that was just because the vinyl was so cheap or something or other. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, added bonus. Um, so okay, so Tapeworm goes on to conquer America, as we all know. What were your next steps after that?
Well, then the next year in high school, I was in a band called Safety Patrol with one of the other guys from Tapeworm, but we never released any product. Then I moved away after the high school. After high school, I moved away to California, and in 1980, I formed the band Fang with my friend Brian from high school, who was also in Tapeworm, and it was formed originally just as a duo. And in early 1981, we recorded a 7-inch, which we released,
Mhm.
to no interest whatsoever. As it seems to be a pattern. There's no interest whatsoever.
So you moved across America. Was it for music reasons, personal reasons, or a little of both?
It was personal. I mean, I left high school and I moved to Chicago to supposedly go to college, but I dropped out of Northwestern University in Chicago after just a few weeks, and I moved out to California. I knew someone I went to high school with lived out in California, so I moved out there to stay with them
Hmm.
because I didn't. I mean, and then the other option was going back home to my parents' house, and that didn't
Who wants to
appeal to
do
me.
that?
Yeah, so.
But you moved out with a bandmate, or at least one of your old bandmates was there. So there must have been some sort of
Well,
musical
I didn't move out
aspiration.
with him, but he joined me. He moved to Texas and then he joined me like a year later. So I was in contact with him. Then he was futzing around in Texas and he couldn't get anything going there. So he
Mhm.
moved out to join me in California.
So with this new single, the Fang, the band Fang, what Enjoy the View, Yukon
Right.
Fang, with that record, that actually had a picture sleeve as well.
Yeah, big time. Picture sleeve. We're really going up in the world.
That's a big cost, especially for a small band now living in San Francisco. So there must have been some strong confidence behind that for you as well.
Well, we just, I don't know. We figured it was a way to get some interest in the band, like we didn't know what else to do. And so we released a single. I think we had both made that Tapeworm single, so we were familiar with the concept of making a single, and so it seemed like the obvious thing to do.
How would you sell those singles? Like going back to Tapeworm, I mean, just friends at
Tapeworm,
school.
we would just sell it to friends of ours at school, or our parents, or just to anyone. We didn't really sell that many. They'd be $1 a piece, and so I all have these high school friends that have all gotten rich off their tapeworm singles because they've been selling them for $1,500 and stuff, and they're very thankful and pleased that we could we could do that for them. Yeah, so those we didn't sell through any distributor or anything like that. The Fang singles, well, when we released it, we went on a tour of some sorts around the country, so we'd sell them at shows there, and also we'd go into the local record stores and sell them there. And I know eventually we only made 500, so eventually I sold a big box of them to Rough Trade, the distributor, and they did something with them.
Mm-hmm. Who knows?
Yeah, threw them. I don't know what they did. They paid me money for them. It's up to them.
Yeah, it's their business now. So going from that single to then that now that wasn't Boner Records. What was that?
No, it didn't. Didn't exist at all then.
How did Boner Records come to be? Because that's the
Well,
next
it
thing.
just was a way because when Fang, the membership shifted around, and by 1982, when we recorded the Landshark record, we had sort of vaguely thought about trying to get someone else to release a record, but we kind of looked around, and eventually I just said, well, I can just do it myself would make the most sense and probably be the easiest way to do it. And at the time, I had no concept that this would be an ongoing record company. It was just a way to put the record out of my band. And the name was just because I lived on the street called Bonar Street in Berkeley. And so it was just amusing, so we called it Boner Street. And so it was Boner Records on Boner Street, and there it goes. And I found out by doing that I really enjoyed the whole process of releasing records. And so I kept it going from there.
Mm. Did you prefer that sort of function in music to playing and touring?
No, I didn't. I prefer playing, but I couldn't really find the right people to play with, I think. So I kind of got away from it and just started releasing the records that way. I think because I sort of like to be in charge of things, like to be the decision maker, and being in a band, you can't really, unless you want to be a total asshole about it, you can't order everyone around what to do, So
Right.
owning a record company, being the sole employee, you really got to do whatever you wanted.
Mm-hmm. It seems to me Boner was set up just for your personal releases, but at some point you started bringing on other bands, ones you weren't part of, yeah?
Right. Yeah. Well, we did the first two Fang records, and then there was this Special Forces album, which was sort of a weird thing because I just was friends with the people in the band, and they were going to be putting up all the money for it, and they just wanted me to help them sell it. And I sort of said, okay, sure, that's fine. And then after that, I had quit Fang, so I wasn't in Fang anymore. So then I still liked putting out the records, so I decided to make that Boners Be Poppin' compilation in 1985, which had the 6 bands on it.
So just prior to Fang, the album, the Landshark album, Fang was also part of a Alternative Tentacles compilation.
Right.
All Not So Quiet on the Western Front, I think. I got a copy somewhere around here.
Yeah.
How did you get involved in that? And were there any lessons you learned from working with Alternative Tentacles that you brought back to Boner Records?
Well, not any lessons. We got involved because it was Maximum Rock and Roll was putting it together. Mm-hmm. The various people involved, Tim Yohannan and Ruth Schwartz and Biafra and maybe Ray Farrell. I'm not sure who was involved with picking bands, but I think they were picking, there's 47 bands. They were picking like almost every band that existed in the Bay Area. I think it might have been Biafra who sort of picked us, because I don't think like Tim Yohannan and Jeff Bale, they were more interested in things that were, if it wasn't political, they weren't interested. Mm-hmm. If the lyrics weren't about El Salvador or Ronald Reagan or, something along those lines, they said, what's the point? And Biafra was more interested in kind of weirder sort of music. And so I think it was through him that we got on the album, although I'm not really sure. And we never dealt with Alternative Tentacles directly. It was always just handing Tim Yohannan basically the tape, and they took it from there. I'm not sure. I know we were supposed to. Alternative Tentacles gave everyone instructions on how to like copyright the songs or do some. I don't know. There's some reason they wanted everyone to have to fill out this legal garbage in order to, it was strange because no other labels really bothered with any of that. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there's any point to it. I think they might have read a book that said they were supposed to do this or something or other. I don't know. But I didn't really didn't get any direct inspiration from it. I got inspiration from it, but I didn't get any direct like clues on how to run a record company. But it's just sort of I saw they were a record company that was around, another example of being able to do it yourself, I guess.
Because just printing your records and getting them out there, and learning organically, it's a pretty slow process, and can be rife with mistakes, which I'm sure there are mistakes made, but yeah, I guess at some point you would have had to have had some sort of perhaps guidance or seen how someone else was running a record company and started taking lessons from that. Is that?
Well, I mean, I guess it came from various places. I know probably I asked around, like, where do you get your records pressed and where do you get your covers made? I think I talked to Steve Tupper at Subterranean and maybe Alternative Tentacles, maybe the guy there. Forget who was doing it then. It was this guy Microwave. He might have been I can't remember. So yeah, I might have got just various addresses and phone numbers, and then uh, various people would hear about where you can get the records distributed. So there was Systematic and Rough Trade where they'd take your records and sell them to stores. And so it kind of was a gradual process of different people telling me different stuff and finding out what worked and what didn't.
But then you had, because you built up enough knowledge, or at least people thought you had enough knowledge to where bands like Special Forces were coming to you and saying, hey, help us out, man.
Right. Yeah. They said, well, yeah, we're going to have this 1,000 records and what do we do with them? And I'm like,
Right.
well, I can sell them to Systematic. They'll take 25, or whatever. And that's, wow, great.
Mm-hmm.
Do that.
So that's how you were kind of getting like Landshark out there through Systematic and a few other distributors. You just made these relationships and just started working.
Yeah. Well, Systematic and Rough Trade were the easy ones because they were in San Francisco. So they were the first easy ones. And then from then I don't remember. I started selling to Important, their Relativity in New York, and there's Green World in Los Angeles, and I don't know. Gradually, and I'd see either advertisements in magazines, or I'd see like other people were distributed through these places, and so I'd call them up, and I just figured the more distributors, the better. Until a few years later, I found out that a lot of them just go out of business and don't pay you, and so
yeah,
kind of screwed me up after a while.
What were you kind of making a little bit of money early on, or at least not going backwards?
Yeah, well, the Fang records would slowly. I mean, it kind of broke even after a year or so, and from then it was making money, and so it was. I was lucky enough that the first thing that I put out actually, wasn't a money loser.
Right. Okay. Now that first album, Landshark, I mean, it opens up with "The Money Will Roll Right In," which is such a fantastic song. It's an anthem. That song seems to have developed a life of its own. What do you remember about making that song?
Well, we Fang did it. We recorded it actually before our singer Sam joined. Not recorded it, but we wrote it before our singer Sam joined. And it was actually our bass player Chris had the music, sort of. He had this sort of weird thing that he was doing in his old band. And they were doing it as a cover of Elvis Presley's Heartbreak Hotel. And he was playing that bass line of bar, 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 bar. And so somehow I think, and then I had written the lyrics. I still actually have the old notebook where I wrote the lyrics. It's pretty funny to see that recently. And somehow eventually I arranged his music to fit the lyrics, and it was one of our it actually was sort of a real memorable thing right from when we first started playing it, because originally Chris was playing bass and I was playing guitar and singing, and so I would be singing it, and then pretty soon after that Sam joined, and then we recorded a version of it, and it really has like been almost an albatross around my neck with this song, that it's the thing that everyone wants to talk about.
Do you not want to talk about it?
No, I'm happy to talk about it. It's just funny. Like everyone comes to me, hey, did the money roll right in? Blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
enough with it. Jesus.
I mean, I imagine though it was an immediate fan favorite.
I think so. I must have been. And when we put it first on the record, we kind of knew it was, the catchiest thing on there. And I'm sure we played it every single show. But the good thing about it, I remember we got people to before we played it, we got people to throw money at us on stage, especially on tour. And so it really helped. Like people would be throwing coins and we'd get to scoop them all up and, be able to buy some top ramen that night or whatever.
So you used it as a gimmick.
In that way.
Now that song is gone on and it was covered by Nirvana. At probably the height of their powers, and released on I think their Reading live album. Is that something? Is that kind of like how did your life change due to that? Was there any?
No, it didn't. I didn't even actually know about it for like 5 or more years after it happened. I'd kind of seen weird things online saying, Nirvana playing that Money Will Right In, but I thought people were confused and it was actually Mudhoney, because Mudhoney recorded a version also. So I thought people were referring to that. So it wasn't really definite that it actually happened until Universal actually contacted me when they were actually planning on finally releasing it and, getting the rights and all the other stuff. So that was when I really knew it happened, but it wasn't, so it wasn't like an immediate anything really. It was a nice thing to happen, but didn't really didn't make me a millionaire. That's for sure.
Right. Did they play it just that once, or was it kind of part of their set for a while?
I think they played it a few times. I'm not really sure. I know they'd played it a few times. I think they actually, and then sometimes they had played it when Kurt would get on stage with Mudhoney and he would like sing it while they played. And so that's why I was confused when people were saying Nirvana did it. But yeah, I think they did it more than once, but I'm not really sure if there's other recordings of it or what.
Okay. All right. Because Kurt loved Fang, from what I understand.
Yeah, I never talked to him about it. I mean, I met him briefly a few times, in various places, but he never mentioned Fang to me. But I don't know if he ever saw us when we were up in Seattle or not. It was probably a little before his time because we were up there with me anyway. We were up there in like 1984, and so he might have still been 15 years old. I don't really remember.
Right. Okay. All right. Because he listed Land Shark as one of his, I guess, foundational records.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
So, and then of course we also know he had a love of Melvins, which I think he identified himself as a Melvins roadie even through some of his Nirvana.
I think that's what people say, and I think what it really, people call themselves roadies, like, he rode in the van with them to their show and probably helped them carry an amp inside. If that means being an official roadie, I don't know. Usually it's just because he'll get in free, or something.
Right. So starting to work with Melvins. How did Melvins come on your radar, and how did they end up on Boner Records?
We'll be back after these messages.
Well, hey there, record collectors. There's a new service available that specializes in record cleaning, restoring, sticker removal, and professional grading.
VMGVinyl.com.
VMG Vinyl can help you make the most of your collectible records. From professional cleaning of records and sleeves,
Removing old price tags and store stickers.
dry cleaning and rejuvenation of old shrink wrap to make it look like new, even providing you a professional play-tested third-party grade with either removable grading or encasing in plastic. You have a wide range of choices at VMGVinyl.com.
Buying a highly collectible record and you want it checked out by an expert?
VMG Vinyl can do that too. Head over there now and see what VMGVinyl.com can do for you and your collection. That's VMGVinyl.com, the one-stop shop for professional third-party grading, cleaning, and record restoration. That's VMGVinyl.com. Oh, and hey, record nerds, don't forget to clean your records with the very best and safest record cleaner, the Groove Washer. Make your records look and sound their very best and store them with confidence using the new Groove Washer Groove Guard record sleeves. You gotta try this out. It makes a huge difference to the quality of your vinyl experience. Ask for the Groove Washer by name at your local record store and accept no substitutes. Or head over to groovewasher.com and use discount code VINYLGUIDE10.
All hail the Groove Washer.
That's groovewasher.com, discount code VINYLGUIDE10.
Now we return to the program already in progress.
No limits.
So we're starting to work with Melvins. How did Melvins come on your radar, and how did they end up on Boner Records?
That was in 1988. This friend of mine, Stephanie Sargent, who was the original guitarist in 7 Year Bitch from Seattle, if you're familiar with them.
Mm-hmm.
She moved down. I met her through Fang a few years before that. Anyway, she moved down from Seattle to San Francisco. And so she was hounding me about putting out a Melvins thing. And I had heard of them and sort of, but I didn't really know much about them. And she gave me a tape of the Gluey Porch treatments. And I was kind of blown away by that. That was like, great. Okay, yeah, let's do a record right away.
Mm-hmm.
So I met the Melvins soon after that, and their only requirements for the record, they wanted it in a 24-track studio, and they wanted to bring Mark Deutrom, who had produced Gluey Porch treatments, in to produce it, and he was living in England then. So he had to fly. He wanted to fly Mark Deutrom over from England, and they wanted to do it in a 24-track studio because Buzz said he really liked the way Gluey Porch treatments came out, and he wanted it to be just as good or better sounding than that. And so that was the only requirements. And I was like, okay, sure, we can do that, and that's what we did.
So it was recorded in San Francisco, and
It was recorded in San Francisco, and I think May '89. Really quick, because they do everything first takes pretty much. They're just like, they're supernatural musicians, I guess. They just, have everything down. They've been probably rehearsing the stuff every day, all day for, a year. And so they just came in and blam.
So even back then they were super disciplined, coming in and just knocking.
Yeah. There was no fooling around. It was just, bam, 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 all done.
Mm-hmm. And do you recall what Mark added to the sessions, how he colored it in?
Mark added a snobby attitude. That was his main contribution in my mind. But no, I know he liked to use a lot of room mics around, so that was nice. Gave a good sort of roomy sound. Ozma ended up sounding a little strange when I hear it now, but other than that, I mean, he was Laurie, the bass player's old boyfriend, and he knew them all real well, and so it was all friendly, easygoing, But I know there was a bit of a little thing at the end where he all of a sudden out of the blue asked me he said, well, what about my fee? And I was like, what are you talking about, your fee? He's like, well, my fee for producing the record. I was like, oh, well, this is the first I've heard about this. But I said, I thought we were supposed to bring you over from England. He was like, well, yes, but then I need the fee for producing. And so I think we worked it out.
Okay.
Slip him a few $100s and okay, fine. Here's your fee.
Okay. And the reception of Ozma, how was it originally? This is 89, right?
Yeah, it came out fall of 89. Fall of 89. It had a lot of interest right away. I mean, there was the sub pop thing was really just sort of taken off at the time. And so they had the Seattle connection, and they had, their old bass player plays in Mudhoney now. And it was just all this automatic connection that really made the thing sell right away.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, made people interested. And then once they heard it, they were like, great, give me more.
Okay. And they were touring around, really working the record?
Yeah, well, they toured. They did some West Coast stuff. And then they were going to tour in the spring of 1990. And then soon before they were leaving, I think it was all set up, Laurie couldn't leave with them. So they asked me to do it because they knew they were friends with me and they knew I was around and I could play. And so, so then I ended up doing that tour in like May and June of 1990, which was a lot of fun. There was a lot of interest and good shows and stuff.
Were you involved in any of the cover artwork For example, Ozma or Eggnog or Bullhead. Was that anything you weighed in on?
Not really. The Ozma cover was just sort of almost, it was almost traced from a book and then colored in and changed around, but I had nothing to do with it. And the back cover was, yeah, just Buzz's handwriting, and that was nothing I was involved in. Bullhead, uh, I mean, I probably did the typesetting and things and layout and stuff, but it was never, it was always the Melvins in charge of what it was going to look like.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's always been the way it's for every record I put out is pretty much the band has said, here's what this is going to be. Do this, do this, do this, and this. And, I'll do the paste ups and do stuff, but it's just grunt work. It's not really creative work, I guess.
So as the guy kind of running the label and you're cutting checks, when a band comes to you with an album cover, do you, I guess I don't want to say judge it, but do you think about like, okay, is this going to help sell the record? Is this, is it a concern of yours at all?
Yeah. But it's kind of like there's nothing I can do about it if that's what they want. I think I'm trying to think of when I've had anything to say about it. I know when Steel Pull Bathtub put out the Lurch record, they didn't have their name on it anywhere and so I said, well, that's not the best idea because, people will flip by it in a store and won't see it. So actually I got them to put stickers on the front. That was the only thing there. I'm trying to think if there's any other. And there's the Ed Hall record, which didn't really have their name on the front either, but it had their name really big on the back. So that was like, okay, it's really big on the back. Fine, that's good enough. But yeah, I've never had a disagreement artistically about like this particular art isn't any good or this art won't help sell the record. It's more, the only thing I can think of is, yeah, well, your name should be on there.
Right. Okay. So when Melvins came to you with the idea for the solo records, the parody
Right.
on the Kiss solo records, what do you remember that conversation? What was your reaction?
I don't remember particularly, but yeah, I thought it was funny and let's do it. I mean, by that point, anything they made there was no financial risk because I mean, it would, it was not going to be a money loser, whatever they did.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was a great idea. I mean, it was sort of such a weird, stupid idea that it was perfect for them.
The artwork of those records, I mean, it really looks like the Kiss artwork. It wouldn't surprise me if it was the same art, if you got the same artist to be able to do it.
Yeah, we got this guy actually that we knew well, this guy Harvey Stafford, and they wanted him to do the 3 front covers and then the 3 posters too, and they had the solo albums, to show him, and they did it. The way they paid him was they played a show in his loft, his birthday party in his loft. They played, and he got to pick the set list. Like he got to pick all the songs that they would play. And so that was that was the only payment that that he needed. Although now he's probably sold the artwork too. But yeah, at the time it was a good deal for everyone involved.
So the artwork stayed with him. You don't have the original artwork of that.
No.
Okay. Does that ever be problematic if you do reissues or anything?
Well, I'm trying to think. It has never come up to be a problem. That Melvins art was weird because I think there was an issue with it where that Melvins artwork, I had it like, when we put the records out, I had the paintings, and so then I just stored it with all the other artwork, that I had, and Harvey came in one day, like sort of demanding it back, and I was like, okay, I guess so. I don't know. It had been something I never really thought about, and so I said, okay, I guess I don't need it. I mean, sure, take it, but I for any reissues, you've always been able to recreate things that you're gone, even if it's going from a next generation of the artwork, whatever. There's never really been a problem.
Okay. And in any of
Hasn't really been any. I'm trying to think of any other record that has been like any kind of fine art that someone has done just for the record. A lot of times it's just stolen stuff, from magazines or whatever.
But there's a lot of records that, and these days they get reissued. I don't think anyone expected to be reissuing vinyl 40 years later. But as they make these records, some of the problems of getting a really good copy of the original artwork.
Yeah, I can imagine when we did the Melvins reissues. Luckily, Buzz's wife Mackie took care of all the artwork, and she kind of redid most of them all. I'm not sure. She might have like scanned some of them and altered them, or she kind of recolored them and did kind of weird stuff to them. So it all is, it's whatever she did, it worked. I don't know.
Okay.
It's out of my hands, and I was happy about it.
So Bona Records, it tends to go, from my perspective, you had a lot of releases, then it goes quiet, then every so often another release comes out. So it's Bona Records has always been in business. It's just sometimes more active than others.
Yeah, well, I was actively putting out releases till like 96, I guess. The last one was a Superconductor Bastard Song double LP. That was
Mm-hmm.
The last was double LP with a gold on the cover and also embossed and just very elaborate. Anyway, and then after that, I didn't really put anything out new wise till like 20 years later. I don't, but it's always been in business as far as everything. Most things have still been in print. A lot of the vinyl is sold out, but everything is available digitally, of course, but also there's still CDs and cassettes and some vinyl of things still available of everything.
Okay. Every few years you have to reprint Melvin stuff, some of the more popular titles?
Yeah, like I've had to keep repressing Melvin CDs pretty constantly every few years, and then the Melvins vinyl, which was re-released, started to be re-released. I don't know when that was, 5 or 6 years ago, and so those have all gone through a bunch of pressings on those. And anything that makes sense to sell, to press 500 more copies of, I'll press 500 more copies of. So there's no. The only reason not to is if I'm not going to press 500 copies, if it's going to sell 10.
Right. Oh, fair enough. So what are your recollections around the Lysol fiasco?
Bad ones. But they came to me with this, they wanted to call the record Lysol, and I didn't really think anything of it just because, punk rock bands they put all kinds of stuff, no one cares. You put these copyrighted stuff or parodies or all kinds of garbage on records, and, it's such on a low level that no one really gives a shit and no one bothers you about it. So I didn't think there'd be any problem at all with it, really. And then eventually a lawyer popped up at the door with a big stack of papers explaining, how Lysol is a copyright of this and this and that, and it's a very, blah, 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 and you need to immediately cease and desist and destroy all copies, and we need you to come in for a deposition and all this other stuff. So it was a big hassle. And my main concern at the time was, because the name Lysol didn't really matter. It was just sort of a random name Buzz threw on there.
Yeah.
And luckily it wasn't printed anywhere. It was printed on the outside cover and on the spine, but it wasn't on any inserts. It wasn't on the actual label of the record or anything. So my main concern was I did not want to have to destroy, I think I'd made probably 8,000 or so CDs and 5,000 records and 2,000 cassettes. And I didn't want to have to throw all that stuff in the garbage because it was probably worth $20,000 or $30,000. And so we had to negotiate with these lawyers, these legal people that humorless, to the max, just trying to anyway, so I had to go to court. It was not like a suit. It was like I had to go with their lawyer and be in front of a judge. It was like I forget what the legal term is. But anyway, we went in there and had to say what was going to happen. And in court, the bad thing was on our first meeting, I basically committed perjury because I said, well, I don't understand because this this release is not hasn't come out yet. It's not even made yet. Nothing's happened yet. And so, what's the point? I won't put it out and, let's forget all about it. And then the lawyer said, okay, well, we'll in 3 weeks, we'll have another status conference and see what's going on. And then out in the hallway, the awful lawyer turned to me and said, look, I know that you lied in there. And you want me to tell you how I know? And I was like, yeah, I guess I'm interested in that. And he took out a picture of the actual CD that said Lysol on it. And I was very confused as to how the fuck did he get a picture of the CD? And they've only been in our warehouse. Like, what did he break into the warehouse? What is going on? And eventually I figured out from reading all the documents that they had hired some private investigator in New York, and he had called me claiming to write for some magazine in New York asking for an advance copy. And at the time, the Melvins were going to be playing in New York right then for, I think, the New Music Seminar or something. And so it made sense that they wanted a copy, and I sent a copy out there to them. And so that's the copy they had. And the picture of, that's the copy they had. So they took the picture, they knew it actually existed. It wasn't something that didn't exist yet. And so
they put a lot of effort into that.
They put so much money, and it was just, the amount of legal hours they must have been at $200 an hour or whatever. It's just sort of ridiculous. So eventually, I guess they were kind enough to work with me to say, okay, you can just cover it up. And you don't have to destroy them all. And so then I had to cover up every single mention of Lysol on the thing and hire random people that I knew to come in and sit there and take speed and do the fucking stickering and just typing and doing over the marking over and all this. God. But it was just that first day when he accused me of committing perjury in court, I was like, oh my God, am I going to jail now? Like, what's going on?
Just getting from worse to worse. So it's the fact that they let you cover up that stuff is actually a surprising result.
Yeah,
they could have been real assholes, and they were on that path anyway.
Yeah, maybe they had some legal reason that was easy enough for them to do. I don't know how, but somehow they were agreeable to it. Mm-hmm. And the weirdest thing was that a lot of the stuff was already over at the European distributor in England in advance, and it was sitting in their warehouse. And so they had to do the same thing over there. And they were really confused because the Lysol brand does not exist in Europe. So they were like, what the hell is this Lysol?
Is this Lysol?
What the fuck are we doing here? What is going on? But they actually had to have some lawyer go in there and check them all. And we had to have a lawyer come in to our warehouse and check all the things to make sure they were properly covered up. And
so you just had to order, you just had to make a whole bunch of little blank or black tape that was a certain size to cover them.
Yeah, I don't remember. I was trying to, I'm such a cheapskate. I was trying to figure out some way to have to do this. And I don't know. I think I couldn't find black stickers. So I had to take white ones. I had to spray paint them black. And then I had to, a regular marker wouldn't work on the coated paper. So I had to buy special markers that would work on glossy things or something. I don't know. But yeah, I had to unwrap them all and take the CDs all apart and do the stickers and do all this shit. And it just, it took a few weeks for sure, of drudgery.
Right. Taping over the thing, then you had to mark over the the spine.
Yeah, and all the records, you had to mark over all the spines, which is easy enough. You put them all in a row and go boom, 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 boom. And, apparently you could just sort of wipe it off pretty easily too if you wanted to. And then all the stickers on the cover and the CDs were a little harder because you actually had to unwrap them and take it all apart and take the back cards out and the books out, take them all apart and put them all back together. And then I had to figure out, I had to get them all wrapped again. And for some reason, I couldn't find a good way to shrink wrap them again. Or like, I don't know if it was, I don't think it was just only because I was a cheapskate and didn't want to pay extra money, but somehow I couldn't find anywhere to get them shrink wrapped. So I had to buy plastic bags, and then put them all into plastic bags and seal them up that way. And so they all looked crappy. They looked like, used CDs and used records, but it was better than throwing them away.
Yeah. That sounds like a very, a bit of a traumatic experience. It made you question everything from that point.
I lost sleep for a few nights from it for sure. I mean, it was really just.
Well, those are quite collectible as well. And I think that's just the story behind them. And then a few escaped without that sort of treatment on.
Yeah, I know the ones. I mean, I think I'd given them some to the band. So they probably had, 20, 30 copies there. So they probably gave those to special friends or whatever they did with them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I saved a few. I know I had a few. I think right now I have one original. I think I have an original CD and original cassette. That's all I have. So there weren't too many that got out, but probably in a lot of them you could wipe off the marker, and you could probably, if you worked hard at it, you could get the sticker off that it would look, new. So that's all it took.
So there was one other parody, the Sub Pop parody, Melvins and Steel Pull Bathtub.
Right.
I'm assuming that seemed to go a lot smoother than Lysol.
No, they actually knew about that. That was Buzz's idea. I think it was sort of like they had the Mudhoney Sonic Youth Sub Pop 7-inch, 12-inch, I don't remember. And so then Buzz wanted to do something. I think he originally was going to be them and Nirvana, or when he was just sort of giving out wild ideas, and then they would do, like, Melvins would do Mudhoney and Nirvana would do Sonic. I don't remember what it was. So then eventually, it got together with Melvins and Steel Pull Bathtub, where Melvins did Mudhoney and Steel Pull Bathtub did Sonic Youth. And Steel Pull Bathtub remade the Sonic Youth cover. They redid the art to look like, it wasn't exact, but it was in that motif or whatever. Mm-hmm. And Melvin's just said, let's use the exact same fucking cover as Mudhoney, like, whatever, just use that cover. So that's what we did. We just took a picture of that and did it. And then I made I had to make the special Sub Pop label. I had to figure out how to make it by hand, and I wasn't really an expert graphic artist, but I had to, like, okay, there's all the little stars and there's this and whatever. And I remember I sent it down to where we got the records made, and it turned out they were the ones who made Sub Pop's records also. So actually they called me up and just want to make sure, is this going to be okay? I mean, we just want to but we're not going to get in trouble for this, and so I had to call up Sub Pop to make sure it would be okay. And then the plant down there said, well, we can just use the same plates or whatever that we use for the Sub Pop labels, and just use, instead of using your artwork, we can just use the actual Sub Pop artwork and for these labels, and look better and be much easier. And I was like, yeah, that'd be great. So that's what happened. So it came out really nice. And then I told it was sort of, making fun of collectible stuff, where colored vinyl and this and that. There was all that Sub Pop singles club happening, and people were getting out of hand with it. And so we just decided to make the stupidest collectible thing we could. And I just told the pressing plant to just make, every single color imaginable. And they just went through it and kept changing the colors around. And so there's millions of different colors. I mean, we think we made 700, and most of them are kind of unique because the colors all mixed together as it goes along.
Oh, which pressing plant was this?
I think it was Alberti. It was either Alberti or Rainbow.
Okay.
I think it was Alberti. But they went out of business at the end of the 90s, but that's who I used for most of the stuff back then.
Rainbow also went out of business, and at one point there was a scramble for people to get their plates. They were storing all the plates of the old.
It happened in Alberti too, and I didn't get. I mean, I would have had to travel down to Los Angeles in order to pick stuff up, and it was kind of like everything at that point. No one was buying records anymore anyway.
Yeah.
So it didn't really matter. So a lot of my stuff got thrown away at Alberti's there. I know someone, because I saw someone selling one of the Melvins plates or what, on eBay. So I was like, where the hell did you get that? I took it out of the garbage at Alberti. Like, oh, all right, whatever.
So one other thing I wanted to bring up is the band Duh. I love that band. I discovered them when I found a copy of the Unholy Handjob in a Burger King parking lot. But you formed Duh. You were kind of one of the original Duh founders.
Yeah, well, the record you're talking about was a whole different imposter Duh. But
Oh, okay.
the original Duh was me and Mike Moraski from Steel Pole Bathtub and Bob McDonald singing, and Gary Held, who owns Revolver USA, the distributor, and Tupelo Records and stuff. So we formed in 1990, I think, and then we released the record Blowhard in 92. And then soon after that, we broke up. I think we went on tour in Europe with Steel Pole Bathtub, and then in 92. And after we got back, sometime soon after that, we kind of fell apart and didn't stop playing. And then Greg Workman from Alternative Tentacles was forming a band. And as I heard it, apparently he asked Bob McDonald, the singer, what should we call our band? And Bob said, why don't you just call it Duh? And he's like, oh, okay. So then they formed a completely different Duh with new members and playing, none of the same songs as far as I know, and just a completely different thing. But it kind of went with the spirit of the whole stupidity of the band that it's, an imposter band would form. And so then they released a record that looked pretty much just like the one we made, except the picture on the front now was of Bob McDonald, our old singer, instead of being some weird disabled person.
So were you aware of any of this?
The record you love is the crappy one it's terrible, what I'm saying. And the good one is the one that I played on, which came out a few years earlier.
Okay. Got it. No wonder they seem very different. The credits are all smart ass too. You don't know what to believe.
Yeah. There's.
Okay. Did you ever see Duh, the imposter?
I did
Duh?
see them. I saw them. I think I saw them the first show they might have played, where some people were confused because like the Duh I was in, we were not, famous or anything like that, but people around town knew who we were. And so some people were at the show very confused as to, well, what is this band? Who the hell? And so, yeah, I think that was the only time I saw them might have been their first show. The best thing about their first show was they wanted to get T-shirts. And I told Greg that, I have these Duh T-shirts left over from our band, and you can just buy those. You don't have to make new ones or anything. So he came in and, took about 3 dozen T-shirts at cost off my hands. So it was a good deal for me again.
Another intertwining of reality. Now, with Boner Records and the history of Melvins, Steel Pole Bathtub, several bands have started at Boner, had part of their career at Boner before going to major label or other spots. With the explosion of the music in the early 90s, were there any overages of larger labels coming with interest of purchasing Boner Records?
No interest in purchasing. No, not at all. There was when the Melvins released Houdini, their first major label thing, I was offered, but to press the vinyl, but it was through, I guess the Melvins just asked me if I wanted to do it. And I kind of didn't really want to. It just didn't seem worth it. Like, the reason I put out records is to be in on the whole creative, to be like involved in making this thing and putting it out to the public and having a part in that. And to just press the vinyl for their record, like something that was already made, it was like, well, I probably could make a little bit of money doing that, but it's kind of like, what's the point in that?
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't, it's kind of a hard thing to explain, but it just didn't seem to have any enjoyment factor in doing that. So I didn't do it. So they ended up having Amphetamine Reptile do it instead, and he actually called me to make sure it was okay with me that they were doing it. And, I was like, yeah, it's no.
Yeah. We talked to Tom about that. Apparently Atlantic actually just paid for the pressing and just sent him the records to sell.
Yeah. I mean, it seemed like, well, so what? That's kind of like, what's the fun in that? Like, what's the point?
Well, it's also like, okay, am I going to owe someone for this?
Yeah. Whatever. Am I going to owe someone a favor or something for
Right.
just, it's sort of missing and it's, the whole thing, you don't want to be involved as much in, like, if they're pretending to be an independent label, like if they want to make vinyl, why don't they just put the vinyl out? Why do they want to have this, to launder it through this independent label to make it seem cool to the right people? Or, I don't know. It just seemed a little off-putting. I didn't really want to be involved.
Right.
But no one ever came with any offers to me to sell out.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, fair enough. So you continued making music into the 90s. You decided to put the pause button on for a while.
Right.
Like, where were you at in your life? What helped you make that decision?
It was kind of in a way like all these bands, Melvins went to major label and Steel Bathtub went to major label. And it just sort of seemed like there was less interest in the kind of music I was putting out. Like the last few things I put out, like sales had really gone down. And I went on a tour with my band Star Pimp in like 1997, I guess. And it just seemed obvious that the interest just was not happening. And it just seemed like it wasn't like a problem with my band. It was sort of a problem with the whole scene I was involved in somehow. I don't know what actually the deal was. So I just lost interest in doing it. And it stopped being fun trying to do promotion and all this other stuff. And because it started out almost like the way I was doing the label was almost like a parody of a record label. Like every bio I put out would be like lies, and every ad would just have in jokes and weird shit on it. And but that kind of got old where, I couldn't keep doing the same type of thing over and over again. And it just the whole business aspect of it and trying to compete with majors and promote the way they do, it just seemed like, what's the point? Forget it. So I felt like I had enough income coming in, and I didn't really need to do this anymore, and it wasn't fun. So I stopped doing it for a while.
Okay. Did you focus on other creative ventures, music or anything?
I thought I would start making films for a while, but then that kind of ended up being harder than I mean, because I'm not a good collaborator. I'm not a good at getting together with other people and collaborating and meeting people and do networking and all that kind of stuff. And especially for film work, you need to have a whole crew doing shit together. It wouldn't work for me. But I like being in bands and being able to do my stuff.
Was Boda Records pretty much yourself? I mean, did you ever have like multiple people working with you?
It was almost always myself. I had a few I had like one employee for a while, and then actually Mike from Steel Bathtub sort of worked for a few months. And they were always like sort of part-time. There was never a lot to do. But then I shared a warehouse with Revolver USA, the distributor. And so in that way, they were able to sell all our stuff direct to a whole lot of stores. And so I got a lot of help that way, and for as far as distribution and not needing a lot of other people. But it was almost always just me doing everything, like designing all the ads, doing the promotions, sending out the promotional copies, these laying out the record covers, calling up the distributors, shipping to the distributors, etc., etc.
Right. So it was pretty much largely a one-man show, but you had casuals that helped you during peak periods.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And so recently you've got this Antler Family record. Now, what preempted stepping back into creative work?
Well, yeah, like 10 years ago, I started playing again. I played in a band with the old singer from Fang and called Cornelius Asperger, and we put out a CD. And then after that stopped, I started playing with Antler Family. This would have been like 2016. And so for the next 3 years or so, we played shows, and we ended up recording a whole album. And then there was the pandemic came along, and so we couldn't play shows anymore, and just sort of people split apart and did weird different stuff. And just in the last year or so, we've gotten gradually back together again, and finally put out this stuff that we recorded 5 years ago. Finally got it out on vinyl, and that just was a few weeks ago when that came out.
Now, obviously, there's been changes from when you were pressing vinyl in the 80s and early 90s to now. What sort of changes in the whole production process? Not just vinyl, but the packaging and marketing and everything. Are you comfortable with those changes?
The changes are, well, with vinyl, for some reason, it takes like 6 months to get anything made, because something where the pressing plants have closed down and they still haven't opened new ones back up because they don't know when this fad is gonna stop again. It's very expensive nowadays, which I don't know if that's all inflation. I think, I don't know what it is, but plus you just don't sell nearly as many. I mean, when I made things in the 90s, or any piece of garbage you put out, you'd sell 2,000 copies, just putting it out to distributors or go out to stores and people would buy it. And I guess a lot of it is people don't listen to music that way as much anymore. They listen to it digitally, just like I do. So they don't buy as much vinyl. They just, they subscribe to Spotify or whatever, and they can hear whatever they want that way. So it's a much more a boutique kind of thing, where you just you just make a few hundred copies and sell them for a lot of money, and to people that want a actual product to hold in their hand, I guess.
And you got a limited pressing here. What sort of quantities are there on Antler Family?
250.
Wow.
And it's a very involved pressing. It's a nice color. It's a nice creamy. It's antler colored.
Okay. All right.
So it's like, I think they might call it bone. I'm not sure. And it has a nice kind of gloss, spot gloss on the cover. It looks real nice. The thing looked really nice. I mean, it was an expensive thing. If we sell out of the 250, we're ready to go on more, so we'll see what happens.
Why the name Antler Family? How did that come together?
I don't know. We just were throwing around a bunch of names, and somehow, I mean, I've heard of bands before that were something family. It always kind of seemed neat to me, the so-and-so family, this family, Partridge family, I don't know. So Antler Family, I don't know, I just said it had a nice ring to it. It's, of course, when you're thinking of names, it has, there's 4 people and everyone's always going to hate something. And so you have to, if you come up with something that everyone says like, okay, that's good enough, then it's like, great, we're set, let's go.
Do you have any other band names kind of in your pocket just in case you need to pull them out?
Yeah, I don't have any. I always wanted to have a band, Stump Fetish, but no one has gone for that one yet. Someone's going to steal it now.
I like Antler Family. It's kind of almost that iambic pentameter.
Yeah, I mean, it just had a nice sound to it. I don't know, nice friendly. It's friendly but kind of dark in the same way. I don't know.
Now, are you starting to play live again?
Yeah, we play. Well, yeah, we played in the few months ago, and we're going to be playing again in March in San Francisco, and so yeah, we're full on.
Okay, so this project may be for quite some time. This may be the first of a few Antler Family releases.
Yeah, because we have new songs. I don't know if it's full albums worth yet, but so we should go in studio it again at some point, and this time we won't wait 5 years in order to put the things out.
Right. Okay.
Make things time.
Well, hopefully there's not another pandemic. Okay, so I'm a little lost as to where to direct people to order Antler Family. I went to Forced Exposure, but they're out of stock.
Oh, well, you can go through Midheaven,
Okay.
midheaven.com, or you can order direct from us at Bandcamp or
Bandcamp. Okay, what's the Bandcamp?
it's Antler Family. I don't know. I don't know the exact.
Oh, it is antlerfamily.bandcamp.com. And yes, 12-inch. Oh, very good. $25. What a bargain.
I saw it. It's on Amazon too, but they were selling it for $71. And I don't know where they're getting that figure from, because I know they're just buying it at a regular, 20 something whatever dollars. So I don't know where they're jacking it up to 71, but you don't have to go to Amazon unless you have a special love for Amazon. You can buy it for much cheaper.
Right.
A lot of.
Okay. Yeah, there it is. Buy it direct from the band, antlerfamily.bandcamp.com. So you're back busy with Antler Family, and Boner Records seems to have been revived. Anything else going on?
Well, I'm in a second band called Suboptics, which I play guitar in also. So we should be recording sometime soon as well, and we'll see what happens. We sure have enough songs too, so
Hey, you got a lot of stuff going on. You got more energy than I do. Fantastic. Okay, so we'll be looking. Is there anything on Bandcamp for them?
Yeah. There's a 3-song demo we recorded. It's not a vinyl release, but it's a demo stuff you can listen to there or purchase there if you wanted to. But
Suboptics, is it Headworm Rocket?
Yes, that's it.
There we go. Okay, I'll put that link in this episode page as well. 3 songs up there. All right. Well, Tom, thank you very much for joining us here and being patient with the record nerd questions. You did really well, by the way. Very, very good memory. And nothing.
Like an honorary nerd or something.
You kind of are a record nerd. You may not know it or recognize it. You need to. You could self-identify as a record nerd and know how to question it. I want to call people's attention to Antler Family, antlerfamily.bandcamp.com. Again, 250 records. So grab one, an Antler colored copy at antlerfamily.bandcamp.com, and check out Suboptics, suboptics.bandcamp.com. I'll put those links in this episode page. And Tom, thank you very much for joining us here. And again, good luck with all these projects going forward. Glad to see the Boner flag is still flying.
Yeah. Well, I'll be here forever. So yeah, thanks a lot.
There we go. Lots of history there, kiddos. Thank you, Tom Flynn of Boner Records, for coming on. I always wondered what happened to that label. I thought they were long gone, but glad to see they were only hibernating, and now they've reawakened. So again, antlerfamily.bandcamp.com. And thank you, Tom. You're welcome back to the show anytime. And that's it for this episode of The Vinyl Guide. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hey, make sure you follow The Vinyl Guide podcast in your podcast app. You got to click the little follow button. I think it's in Spotify and, of course, at the top of the screen on Apple Podcasts. Make sure you click that button, because that way, whenever we come out with an episode, it lets you know. something new's going on, and you can enjoy it right away. And of course, thank you to everyone who's leaving positive reviews. You know, if you haven't yet, you can too. Go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify, say something really nice, rate us 5 out of 5 or something swell, and we do appreciate that. And we'll be back shortly with a brand new episode. So until we talk next time, get out there and buy some records, people. Cheers.